like to call to order the meeting of the Special Committee on the Transition to 14 Wards. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderman Page. Alderman Stevens.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Gross.
Here.
Alderwoman Walker.
Present.
Chair Green.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Schweitzer. We have 10 present. You have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today on this dreary afternoon. So what I want for us to do today is this to just be a level setting meeting about the work that we have before us when it comes to transitioning to 14 wards. As we know, we have about a little less than 5 months in order to prepare fully for this transition. And there is a number of items that we need to discuss, from staffing levels and procedures to review of past ordinances that reference 28 wards, to our rules and committee structures, to ensuring that constituent services are streamlined throughout this transition, and we ensure that they continue to receive quality city services even with fewer alder people. So the first thing that I wanted to do today was just to open it up for discussion, going through in seniority, to create a running list of all of the things that we need to tackle as a committee between now and April. And then from there, I envision us being able to break down into some subcommittees that work on specific pieces of the things that we need to accomplish over the next 5 months, and tentatively plan for full committee check-in meetings, probably once a week through that time frame, while also recognizing we are going to go on break. So we may have one more meeting of this committee before we go down for the holidays, and then we'll reconvene again in January. But I want to make sure that we start to get the ball rolling on if there's different research or documents that we need to be pulling together, so that over the holiday, my staff and I, or other folks on this committee, can be reaching out and compiling that information. So when we come back at the after the first of the year, we have all the information that we need in order to move forward. Does that sound like a good plan of action?
Yes.
All right. So the first thing I just want to start with is going through seniority and in discussing, from the point of view of each person on this committee, what are the action items that come to mind that we need to address between now and April. So I think I'll start with Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you. I really only have 2 things that I wanted to target as something that needs to be a priority.
Okay.
And one is the designation of service. And how do I say this? The designation of service from critical departments. We do know that there's a challenge with the neighborhood stabilization, and they've not been able to really hire people. And I know I've been assigned in the last 3 or 4 months about 5 or 6 different people. So right now, my residents are just handling everything, as well as myself, although we do have some people who step in to help us out. But we really need to clean that up, whether that is a needed support system anymore, or if it needs to revert to having a permanent assistant, which is what the personnel department is talking about, to assist with those kinds of things with the alderperson. And my other thing is looking at how we educate the public. For me, this is so critical. Most people are very, very confused. And on some days, so are the alder people. So we need to make sure that they understand what ward they're in and the different ways that we're going to communicate with them. And I think it needs to be an entire year of different ways of doing that. And that's it for me.
Sounds good. And just so you know, Christina is taking notes on this and is putting together a Jamboard. So we'll share screen in a little bit to make sure that we are capturing everything that everyone is saying. All right, Alderman Vaccaro.
So, yeah, the thing I think we have to see the charter change that said how we refer, because everything stayed at 28, basically how the funds are put in place, but then also there needs to be something that says, if these funds are already encumbered, that someone isn't going to come along and unencumber them, and I don't know, I think that's just what's important. Whatever's in place and promised that to people, whether it's their sidewalks, a street, tree, an alley, whatever that might be. The rest is just cleaning up, anything that says, 28, it's gonna be 14. Do we really want right now? We got 15 committees. Some of these committees come together and not have nearly the same amount of committees. And certainly don't think we need 14 for 15 aldermen. Could, I guess.
I think we just lost the alderman from the 23rd. No, is he back?
No, I think his signal dropped. Hold on.
There he is.
Okay.
I'm here now. For some reason it drops and comes back. It's just exciting. So I'm not going to prolong this. But I'm just saying that just how the money, if it's encumbered, that we don't come along and make a lot of changes.
Okay.
I think that, I think Chair or President Green now, I think you were frozen, or you keep freezing up on mine.
I think you keep freezing on our screens.
Is that what it is?
It's definitely
Sure, it's all about me.
Yes.
Okay, because you keep freezing and stuff. Anyway, that would be my only concerns is, do we need as many committees? Some of them surely can be put together. Some of them have, I think some of them only met one time since I've ever been there. So anyway, that's really about it. I think just how we, that's the only thing. There should be some sort of something, and I don't even know how we do that legally, to say you can't change what's already in place. Everything we do, I guess, going to be more of a suggestion than unless we can get something on a ballot, which we won't have time to do between now and, because we have to have things on there fast.
Right.
So I think it's just going to have to be like a giant agreement between everybody that says, okay, we won't mess with it. But then there's people that aren't here that wouldn't. It should be interesting, but I'm here to see them. That's my suggestions anyway.
Okay.
So I will mute myself if my computer doesn't do it for me already.
All right. Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things that come to mind without me having spent a lot of time thinking about it. I apologize. I probably should have done that prior to today. But did want to reiterate that I think the neighborhood improvement specialist situation is continuing to be a problem in terms of what our residents can expect and what alderpersons can expect. And I would really like to see, I think their work is very meaningful. I think if they, it just might need to be retooled. It might need to be a bit more creative and visionary. I also don't like how they kind of have a quota system where they're required to turn in a certain amount of complaints or requests in a month without really focusing on what's actually happening. You know, it might be somebody's grandmother or some single mother who's having a rough time. We don't need to be citing those people. Initially, we need to be providing more social service supports if we can. I agree also with the alderman from the 23rd that we need to be taking a look at our rules, including committees, and possibly making suggestions on smart changes. I'm sure some of the changes can be left until the new session starts in April of 2023, but it might be helpful to have a list of recommendations for incoming aldermen. I would also love to see some more professionalism in the way that the board is run, especially for our staff. There's really no room for professional development or growth for them. They don't get reviews. There's no real safety mechanism in terms of an HR system for elected officials or for our staff. That I would like them to have more opportunities for raises on an ongoing basis so that they understand we value their work. I think we need to take a look at the allocation of ward capital funds and what that looks like post April 2023. And I think if possible, it would be good to take a look at models of other local legislative bodies to see what might be working well that we can steal from other places if there are places that are working well. And that's all I can think of for now. Thanks for the opportunity to serve on the committee.
Wonderful. Alderwoman Boyd, you are up next.
I'm just listening. I hear a lot of people saying stuff, but I just feel that we're kind of behind the 8 ball, and 5 meetings is not gonna get it. And so I'm just kind of heartbroken because I knew we were gonna come to this point. So now we're scrambling, trying to get where we need to be. And we had a lot of work to do. I know me and Heather has started a lot of stuff, but we just got a lot of work to do. That's all.
Right. See, is Alderman Bosley here? No. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you. At this point, I'm just listening because I don't really have a voice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Quite literally. Okay, Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. And maybe Alderwoman Middleburg, feel free to use the chat too. We'll sound off if you've got stuff you want to add in. So I would love to define the job description of an alderman. This is something I would love to just have a encapsulated job description so that the public understands what it is that is our role, what is not our role. And I think that would help also orient ourselves to the other departments and that type of thing. So it may be something that kind of finesses as we go along here, and figure out what our role in the neighborhood stabilization is, or what theirs is in ours, and that type of thing. But I've long had conversations about what is it that these jobs are supposed to be, and is there a job description that we can come to. And I loved the education piece that the alderwoman from the 19th talked about. I think that would be incredible to roll out sort of as we move into this new group of 14, that there is some public information that's here's who your alderperson is, here's what the job is, here's what these other departments do. I think the more public engagement we can do, the better. That would be incredible. I don't think I have anything else that hasn't already been said, but I talked with some constituents and said, you know, if you've ever dealt with a city department or a process in the city that you were told you needed to speak to the alderman, and you want to flag that for us so that we are making sure that we are addressing that, that would be really helpful. So just if any of the public is watching right now and you think of ways or places that the number of alderpersons will impact, that please let us know so that we can make sure that those things are on our radar as well. So thanks.
Looks like Alderman Todd.
I'm just in support of the transition, and the question of what happens to ward capital is one concern I think definitely needs to be addressed, because I do have an opinion, because and as I was a Democratic committee man for more than 20 years, I have to pass this. The taxpayers have already paid the taxes for this. It has been allocated for different wards. Also, the other question is, I have some projects that have been paid for and the laws have been passed, but the work has not been done. That has to be addressed, because my constituents, and I expect, let me make it crystal clear, because I don't want to blindside anybody. I expect, whether I'm in office or not, that money to be spent where it's supposed to be spent. And it has been delayed by the street department, especially. Sidewalk, I'm gonna give concrete examples. Sidewalks, I've many sidewalks. Also, almost at least 16 speed humps was promised. I have some areas that have not been paved in 20 some years, but they promised to pave them, and now the weather's gotten bad, and I have documentation and email where they say they were gonna do it, but now they're not gonna run out the clock, because I would think it's done intentionally to either take the money from the residents that I represent now, which I will be representing until April, and I put it someplace else. I think that is unacceptable. You know, I think that the commitments to the people that I currently represent should be kept, since this is their money. That's my concern. So that's what I think the transition team that we're working with could get that done before the clock runs out. So there are some things I think we can get done. I think we can get it all done. If I'm just optimistic. I think it's just a matter of effort, and I'm willing to put in the work. But I think we should have a smooth transition, as everyone knows that I fought to the bitter end. But at the end of the day, this is happening. I think we need to think now, look forward and not backwards, and think about how we can make sure that everyone in the city is treated fair. That's what I think we should do. And so I want to listen to other people, because I have an opinion, but mine is an opinion, but somebody may have a better idea. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I echo a lot of the comments from Alderman Todd about concerns about ward capital and how the money that is currently in people's ward capital accounts gets divided if they're, once they're no longer alders, and how that works out. And then also, the money that's been allocated and is, being tracked as something in the 13th ward, what alder person is going to be involved with that fund, if any. How does that allocation work? And then any process that other city departments have where they divide it by ward, what their efforts have been to prepare for the new wards. I spoke with Neil Richardson very, very briefly, and he was mentioning the work they've done to kind of start transitioning everything to the new ward number. And I just want to see where all the different departments are on that process. Yeah, I appreciate the time to talk.
Great. Let's see, Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, Madam President. And as a side note, Madam President and Alderwoman Davis, you're both most present on my screen. So if I start to break up in City Hall, please start flagging me down. because I tend to drop out after a minute or so. But I agree with my colleagues here at the Special Committee on Transition. We need to look at condensing committees. You know, intergovernmental affairs, for example, could easily be merged with, say, legislation committee. So I think that would be a good practice to sort of review, like, okay, where are the overlaps, where are the common items, and how can we sort of take 15, 16 committees and kind of just bring it on down. I think that we should really encourage our current colleagues of the 28 wards to create plans of the current projects that they currently have underway or that they have planned and that they've allocated funding for, in order to hand off to any successor that might come. So be they reelected to the Board of Aldermen with the new 14 wards, well, then you've got a handy reference for your projects. For those of us that are not seeking reelection or who are not so lucky to be reelected, I think that's a valuable resource to say, like, okay, well, the new first ward incorporates Patch and Carondelet, Holly Hills, Boulevard Heights. Those are all represented by 3 different wards currently. So what projects are going on and what needs to be on our radar? I think that we should also consider, as we look at transitioning into the new board, we need to consider incorporating the Missouri State Auditor's reports on the Board of Aldermen and her suggestions, Auditor Nicole Galloway, which would have been circa 2018, 2019. And there were several things. One that comes to mind is the expense account and how that's handled. I think now is the time to, you know, as we sort of resow and regrow the Board of Aldermen for new pastures, that we incorporate these suggestions by state agencies. And then finally, I absolutely agree with ward capital. You know, I've got 150,000 tied up in the Kings Highway project, which I'm happy to leave there, but we got 3 wards that put, $400,000 towards that project. And if those are funds that we won't need past this, then at the end of the session, I can put $150,000 to a lot of projects in the 12th ward. So I think that clarification, what ward capital is going to look like, better differentiating between public officials or elected officials and public administrators, because as all of us know, we constantly get the contact your alderman or call your alderwoman response from city agencies when we don't actually have legal authority to compel action, being legislators. So I think the city hall as an entire entity needs a sort of refresher on that. And then finally, I promise finally, I wonder if we can't work with local law schools such as WashU School of Law or St. Louis University School of Law to bring on interns, legal law student interns, to help us go through the ordinances, because I do think that we're going to need a legal opinion on if a board bill, an ordinance was enacted that was specifically for the 12th ward, for the boundaries of the 12th ward as they currently stand, does that legislation still stay in effect, essentially imprinting the current 12th ward boundaries when we transition to 14? So I think that we need to really start diving into some legal opinions from the city councilor's office and from Mr. Galley. I think that we need to comb through and really figure out which ordinances do we need to repeal, what do we need to sort of clean house on legally, but more specifically, how we address, 75 years of ward by ward legislation. So with that, that's all. I know that was a whole lot, and I've got my little list here in case anyone missed anything. But again, I thank you for the opportunity, Madam President, for allowing me to serve on this committee and to assist in this transition. Thank you.
Alderman Page.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have 5 items on my list. Some of them have been addressed already in some degree or other, but I'm just going to run through them real quickly. First on my list is ward capital, and that's been mentioned before, but here are my concerns. I'm concerned about unspent ward capital, including that was allocated to me and that I inherited from my predecessor. I'm concerned about projects, ward capital projects that are already funded and are either partially started or not started. I'm concerned about what happens to those projects that are associated with ward capital allocations that are in various states of completion. Next, I'm concerned about, and I totally agree with the comments from Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman from the 19th, neighborhood improvement specialists. And that is tied very closely to my 5th item, which is city services. I can't speak for all 28 current wards, but especially on the north side, we have a lot of like LRA properties, privately owned derelict properties, and we are constantly chasing ghosts with overgrown lots that require the attention of forestry. We have a lot of grass cutting. We have a lot of that just perpetually, and we're playing, I don't know about others, but I'm constantly playing whack-a-mole, trying to put literal virtual fires out when it comes to city services issues. And I'm very concerned that the changes, and some probably are unavoidable because of available resources, but the changes that continue to occur in the ranks of the neighborhood improvement specialists, because while they do not report to us, they are critically important allies in addressing city services related issues. It's one thing to try to tell the public that the legislative branch is not responsible for city services, but that doesn't cut any ice. We still have to do what we can to help and support our constituents. The 3rd item is administrative support. And I understand when we go to 14, there may be some administrative support resources, but my question is, are those resources confined to office, or are they available to do some field work? So that's one of my major concerns, and that's tied right with the neighborhood improvement specialist issue. The next issue is committees. Numbers of committees, committee assignments. Because if you just do some real easy math, fuzzy logic, so to speak, when we go to 14 with the current complement of committees, each alderperson will have approximately twice the number of committees. So I think that deserves a hard look and a lot of analysis to determine what's the right number and makeup of our committee structure. Last, and the last thing, and probably most important or equally as important, is what I referred to earlier, is city services and how we connect our constituents to necessary city services without us running in the hamster wheel, which I don't mind. I constantly buy new Skechers track shoes, but so that we're not running the hamster wheel and we can pay more attention to our legislative work. But those are things that were on my list. Thank you for the time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Gross.
A lot of the substantive things that have been brought up already, I agree with. Ward capital, I think, is a big thing. It didn't really occur to me until Alderman from the 5th just said it about how, there's going to be a lot more, we're going to have to be in more committees if there's less of us. So that's a good idea. I wanted to say, Heather, Alderwoman Navarro, I know along with Alderwoman Boyd, I think did do a lot of work. She handed me a folder about a couple months ago with all her paper notes from it. And I wanted to get that scanned and like put into the, I don't know, shared folder before the meeting today, but I didn't, but I certainly can. And can do that. I don't know what, if she has any other electronic materials, I can reach out to her also, because I just have a paper file. But, beyond that, I mean, I think everybody's kind of on the same page of some of the substantive things we need to look at. And I think that we really should use this opportunity to try to not just, play defense and get through the next few months and try to get through ward reduction without any disasters happening or the wheels falling off, but actually use this as an opportunity to try to fix some things that we've been wanting to fix for a while. Yeah, I understand it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm here to do it. So
Thank you. Alderwoman Walker.
Hello, Madam President and members of the committee. Basically, everything's that I can think of has been said. I really like Alderwoman of the 8th ideal about defining what an alder person does. And I laughed when she said, let's teach the public, because I almost think you have to teach everybody. Because all city people, all police, anybody you can think of says, call your alderman. That's their favorite line. And when they tell people that, people think we Jesus and we can wave their hand and part the water. And then when you can't do what people want you to do, you no longer favored. So I absolutely love that ideal. I think that is really, really important. And the other concern I have is what if about 3 other people said, and that was the capital improvement money. Even if I order stuff and I spend all the money I have, the person that comes behind me can decline on the repairs. And that's not really fair to my constituents. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Wonderful. Are there members present who are not on the committee who have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'm not on the committee, but I don't really have anything to add. Everything that everybody said, it would be on my list. So I concur with everything that has been said here today. A lot of good insight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Alderwoman Howard.
I would like to just reiterate the Alderwoman from the 6th idea that, if we have a staff, they have to have some time to bone up, to become more savvy in the use of technology. That should be, we have a whole IT system available through the city services that would really help to bring the office into the 21st century. And I also think that people that are going to work as the aides, that should be some of the requirements, that these people have a facility with electronic communication and all of the, I guess, the technology that's available now. I'm not as savvy because I'm old as some of you young people, but I think that we need to have those people at our disposal so that, or those that are going to be their disposal, so that the communication can keep flowing. The communication is key in this job, and it really needs to be at the top level. So that's all I have, and I think everybody had really good ideas, and I don't think we missed anything. So
oh, good.
Other than remodeling the chambers and pulling up nasty carpet. Okay.
That's on a different committee's list.
I know.
All right. If we could give Christina Garmendia a screen. Okay, she has screen sharing privileges. We can put up everything that's been said before so we can just see it.
Can you see it?
All right. Are you able to see what's on the screen here? So it looks like under constituent services, we have permanent assistant to alder people to ensure good services from departments, NSO replacement, followed by down lower NSO reform. Neighborhood improvement specialists haven't been consistent, but the work is important. Remove complaint system. Don't currently report to us, but they're critical allies. We have a lot under ward capital. Make sure incumbent funds are used for their intended purpose. Few folks talked about the unspent ward capital and incomplete projects and figuring, making sure that the projects that are encumbered go through and there is a plan for any unspent ward capital, and that all funds, that there needs to be some account, all funds have been allocated, but the work hasn't been done. We need accountability on that. Division of unencumbered funds amongst newly electeds. What does that look like with the change in ward boundaries? Ability of successors to decline on repairs. We want to make sure that we address that so that if something's in progress, that it doesn't get stopped. Alders creating references to their in progress projects for their successors. So there's something to go off of. We have the aldermanic role, the job description, educating the public on what we do, and city departments, teach city staff on the role of alder people, have more formalized training for newly elected people, reform the expense accounts, and create better differentiation between legislators and city departments. Ordinances. Do we need additional legal assistant work to get this done? I think that's a good question. Committees, list of recommendations for incoming alder people on organization of committees, compare to peer cities, where can committees be merged, reduction of committees, right number and makeup of committees, then board staffing, professional development, opportunities for raises, administrative support, technology training, legislative age should be tech savvy. I see Alderwoman from the 13th has her hand raised. Is there something that you think is missing?
Thank you. Just regarding word capital, when you were speaking, it came to mind. When does the new allocation of ward capital get added to people's accounts? Is it early in the new year, or is it not until after the budget?
It's after the budget.
Okay, so there will be no money added to anyone's account. Because, but I guess what I was thinking is like, if it were to come in before then, how do you wouldn't want to spend all of it if we're going to be, there's another ward that's going to be coming in, and they wouldn't have the new funds for that ward, if that makes sense. I just wanted to.
So we, those budget meetings typically happen late April to early May, to inform those decisions for the new budget that takes place on July 1st.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to be an issue. I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah, it would be the new board that is in charge of any new funds going into those accounts.
So that would be just whatever, we figure out with how the ward capital. I think we're also assuming in all of those questions that the ward capital should be divided instead of 28 ways, 14 ways. And I don't know if there's a way to, if people have talked before about, areas that maybe need more spends. I mean,
how do we make ward capital more equitable?
Yes, and I'm not even, I would be interested in whether or not that's what people would want to see, how people would want to see ward capital divided any other way besides 14. I just know with some wards that are larger and have more, streets and everything like that, I've heard it numerous times about a more equitable division to be discussed. Thank you for letting me pipe up again. And this is I've never seen this before. This is neat, little sneaky note thing.
Alderwoman Walker.
Hello. Madam President, something real little bitty that bothers me that I think can be streamlined. I have a lot of trash and stuff throughout the 22nd Ward, and when I'm riding, I'll stop, click pictures of a pile of tires or something, and do a citizen service report on it. And I hate having to go through the process of putting my name, my address, my city, my phone number. And I think all the people should have a little special number that you can just shoot in to make the process faster. You're gonna be tripling your ward. So I mean, anything that you can streamline and make easier would be great. And that's one of the things that bother me. I don't know if it bothers anybody else, but it's time consuming.
You do have a number, you know, you can put in there now. Now, I don't know if they adapted it to the new number, but you can put Alder 22 and it'll take your request. You don't have to fill out the whole thing.
I asked that question of about 4 people, Pam, and you the first one. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Boyd, and you the first one that told me that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Alderwoman. You're welcome, Alderwoman Walker.
It goes back to needing that handbook or something when you first start, right?
Right. I was at Citizen Service Bureau asking the supervisor this question, and I didn't get that answer.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know that. But yeah, you just do that and try. And if you have problems, just let me know and I'll walk you through it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Davis.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to share is in the past, and even before I became an alderperson, when there was a need for additional funds and award, there were conversations with other alder people who probably had some additional funds that they were not using, and they appropriated them to the project in another ward. I know I've done it since I've been here. Other people have helped me with other projects. We currently work together at allocating funds from various wards, sometimes 2, 3, 4 on a particular project. So that should never go to any other decision-making body, but allowing the alderpersons to work together on making those decisions with their capital funds. Thank you.
Right. Alderwoman Rice.
Yeah, thank you. That just reminded me, I would like to have, I'm assuming, you know, BPS is going to have to be a part of the conversation, particularly when we're talking about ward capital, but figuring out how it is that the BPS liaisons are going to work with the new 14 aldermen too. If that's going to, you know, how they're going to assign those, because to that point on cooperation between wards, when neighboring wards have different liaisons, it makes it harder to get cooperative projects done. So that's something I think we should be in conversation with BPS about. And then under the ordinances, I think that one might be something that we have to ask the city councilor's office to take on as a major project, as a review, to see if there's someone that they have in their staff, or that it just seems like such a hefty thing to take on. So whether it's the city councilor or the registrar or someone who is able to, or even outside researcher from one of our educational institutions or something, that is a massive project, I think, and getting legal guidance as to whether, you know, boundaries hold under the definitions of a ward versus definitions of, you know, drawn boundaries. Street boundaries, do those things hold? What types of stuff happens there? And we're just going to need a lot of assistance on that. I don't think that's something we can handle in-house.
Yeah. So we have requested and received from the city councilor's office a list of every single ordinance that is either ward specific or references 28 wards. And so we have a Google Drive for that, that once we figure out who's sort of going to take that on, we can figure that out. And we have some interns that are able to help us in this capacity as well, because it is going to be very time consuming. And I think we're going to have to compile a list of questions that we need answered from the city councilor's office in terms of how we address some of these changes. It's not just ward capital, but the civilian oversight board boundaries. Their districts were based upon previous ward boundaries. And so that's something I think we're going to have to address as well. And those are just the ones that I've been able to kind of look at, but I think there's like 59 different ordinances that they have found so far that are things that we need to potentially address due to mentioning either 28 wards or being specific with currently existing ward boundaries.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. So if there's no further discussion, no further things to add, we have a pretty big list here already. What I would like to do is create a plan to divide and conquer on this. Can we break down into some smaller work groups that are digging into some of these issues, and then over the next, and then we can check back in next week on how we're getting some things going. But wanted to see, so I think Christina is sort of bringing over the high level things that we need to address. Let's give her a minute because she's making me dizzy.
I was trying to stop share, but I figured it wasn't for that.
Okay. And so for committees, I would label that probably committee/rules, because there were a few that require some changes in our rules. And I'm in agreement. I don't think we necessarily want to pass new rules. I think it would be helpful for us to put together some recommendations for the new board on things to consider when adopting their new rules. And I know that the clerk has put together some a few suggestions for changes, and I've also had some interns working on compiling rules from some other cities, so we can look both at their committee structures and their rule structures. But do we just want to go through the role and see who would be interested in working on each one of these things, and then that can become our working groups that take on each aspect of this? Are there any objections to proceeding that way? All right, then I will go through Alderwoman Davis. What would you have an interest in working on?
Wow. Let me see here. Make this a little bigger. I'm definitely interested in the committees and rules for sure. And then whoops. I think okay. The only other thing that I might have a little bit of interest in is because I don't want us to get out of our path when we're dealing with the personnel issues, because that is definitely not anything that we should get in the way of the personnel committee, because they've done a lot of work on this, most especially the last 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. And you're on the personnel committee, correct?
No, I'm not.
For some reason, I thought you were. Okay. Well, I think that the personnel committee is happy to hear recommendations from anyone not on the committee. So we will add you there as well. Alderman Vaccaro.
I would say, can you see me? I don't see me.
We see you.
Good to see
Okay.
you.
I'm doing this on my phone, so it's harder. Wait a minute. Anyway, there I am. I see it. Anyway, I'll just put me wherever you think, because I'll have an opinion on probably any and everything anyway. So, and a lot of it, I don't even know how we're going to enforce. Like if we say you can't move ward capital around like a new person, you know they're going to do it.
Can't hear you.
Joe, you moved, and so your reception is bad.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, don't move.
Can you hear
Stay
me
there.
now?
Don't move. Stay right
Okay.
there.
I'm just saying, no matter what rules we make, as far as ward capital boundaries, as far as where money goes and how it's done, the new alderperson coming in can always stop a project and move money from one to another. And I don't know what we can do to stop that. And some of this is by charter, not that necessarily, but so I'm just saying, put me wherever, and I'll do the best to be as cooperative as possible. I'm just saying, I do think a lot of this, you're not going to be able to come along and say, you're a new alderman, you can't move, or you can't say this project or this part. I do think we can do something now in our rules, even without this committee. We can say any encumbered funds. We can actually do that as a rule change, or by ordinance, that any encumbered funds stay encumbered. And that way, at least we know that if there's projects out there, it's not going to be moved. But just say it here and say, well, we're just going to make that rule. I don't see how you're going to stop the next person that comes along from saying, I'm going to move that. That's my ward. It's my cat, I'm just saying.
Think these are conversations to be had with BPS, and we'll figure that out through the course of this process.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'll be opinionated on everything anyway. Just put me wherever you think.
Okay. All right, Alderman. Alderwoman Ingracia.
Thanks so much. I don't know if I'm the only one who can no longer see the screen, the shared screen.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Do it again.
Hold on, we're getting it back up.
Great. My first choice would be BOA staffing. Also happy to work on aldermanic role. That's all I have.
Okay. The Alderwoman Boyd.
I guess my question, you say automatic role. I guess if I'm looking all the way back from a committee person's role, so we know the alderperson's role is legislative, but for centuries that's never happened. And so I guess it's kind of hard to say, well, if my role is to do legislation, that's all I'm going to do. And so I'm just concerned how that would look as an automatic role. That's just not making sense. But I wouldn't have a problem with the constituent services, because that's something me and Heather were really looking at, the constituent services and how to ensure that those are out there. And then the ward capital, because if I'm not mistaken, is it the charter? Am I saying it right? It's the charter that says it's for the 28 wards.
It's just an ordinance that was approved by voters.
Okay, so it would have to go back before the voters for 14 wards.
We're not sure that it has to, because if it's still being used for the same purposes. But I think we need a legal opinion on that.
And then too, because I've always said that I don't know how they came up with splitting it evenly, because that's unrealistic because as Alderwoman Davis said, it's all the people that don't even use their ward capital. They don't need it. They don't have the need for it. So it couldn't be equally in 14. It would have to be assessing the wards and their needs to address what the capital will be. That's just my opinion, what I'm thinking.
Okay. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Bosley here yet? I don't think so.
Yes. No, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Which committee or which areas are you interested in working on?
Constituent services
Okay,
and Board of Aldermen staffing.
awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Okay, so I will do Board of Alderman staffing
Okay.
and committee, the green one next to it. I can't see it right now.
Thank you.
Committees and rules. Thank you.
Alderwoman Rice.
I'm sorry, Alderwoman Middlebrook, I really hope that you feel better soon and you get your voice back. I think I'm interested in the aldermanic role. I'm interested in ordinances, even though maybe that's more work than I actually want to take on. Yeah, I think maybe those two right now. I'm interested in the rules and committees, but I can hold off on that. I don't need to be on more than 2 subcommittees. So thanks.
Sounds good. Alderman Todd.
I would like to be on the ward capital.
All right,
Okay, that's it. Just ward capital.
great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
I think I'd be interested in ordinances. And I'll see what still needs people after we go through to see about what else I can help with.
Okay.
I'm Schweitzer. Or maybe Dave. Oh, did she put it in the chat? I was like, get Alderman Davis and be confused. Okay, thanks.
Alderwoman, which did you say again?
I said ordinances.
Ordinances.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm interested in ordinances as well as committees and rules. And then if I might, as a sort of side project, I'd like to, in addition to the regular documentation of our meetings and proceedings by the clerk, I would like to create a sort of compilation, if not a sort of narrative of this process, sort of illustrating what is a monumental and by all means historic reduction of the board. So I don't know if that would be like, see this story, Ed? Okay, yeah. If that's okay with everyone else, just a little side project.
It's our resident archivist. We will task you with that. Alderman Page.
Yes. It's very easy for me. Ward capital first, constituent services second. I'm also very intensely interested in the committees, parts of committees and rules and the BOA staffing, but I better not overcommit. Let's just go with constituent services and ward capital. Oh, no.
We're getting rid of that one.
Okay, thank you. But I'm just expressing my interest.
Okay. Well, each kind of working group will be bringing back their findings to the full committee. So Alderman Gross.
I will, just because I think that I could be the most helpful there with my law background, I'll do ordinances. As far as another one, I'm honestly, they all kind of have, the rest of them are all kind of pluses and minuses. So, you know, happy to take another one, but I don't really have a strong opinion on which one.
Okay. We'll see where we need at the end. Alderwoman Walker.
Ward capital, please. That's it.
All right, I think that is everyone, except Vaccaro. So let's see where we're pretty evenly distributed. Good job.
I don't have to serve on a subcommittee. I mean, if it's, you know, if it's all good, then I'm good with whatever.
Okay.
So I don't feel like, you know, if you need me somewhere, I'm there, but I don't really have to serve on a subcommittee.
All right, that is great. All right, before we wrap up for today, and if folks want to add themselves to other, you know, discussions at a later date, I think that's fine. But this will just kind of get us going on what we need to work on. So I think probably the next steps from here would be if we go back to the previous screen where we discussed all the things that need to happen under each area. We will get this emailed out. And if each of those working groups could start to make some headway over this next week. So I'm thinking with constituent services, probably need to, arrange for a time. Sorry, Alderwoman Ingrassi, I see your hand is raised now.
I apologize. I didn't need to cut you off. I was just going to suggest, if possible, not necessarily for the subcommittees, but for the special committee, if we're able to kind of set some scheduled meetings out so that we know what to expect. I know everyone's schedules are crazy and the holidays are coming up. I just want to make sure that I set aside the time I need to on my calendar.
Definitely. Yes, are there particular days or times that would be best? I'm
Madam
here.
President?
Oh, there we go. Alderwoman Davis.
I just wanted to share that usually Mondays are not that busy for us with committee hearings, but it would be good to work with the board clerk who has all information for our meetings. Madam President, you can correlate your schedule with the clerk in the calendar for the board.
Okay, I will do that then and have some meeting dates out to folks within the next few days. Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, ma'am. I was going to suggest, and we can absolutely table it, but I was going to suggest, since we do know that we all convene on Fridays for our full board meetings, that perhaps we have a running 30 minutes after the adjourning of the full board meeting, just a standing committee meeting, just perhaps a check-in. Oh, I'm getting some pushback from Alderwoman Rice. maybe not, but I'm trying to think of times when we know that we're all there.
Yeah, I'll work with the clerk and I'll figure out where there's a gap and where it doesn't also overlap with some of my other duties with Airport Commission and things like that. But I'll get those meetings out within the next few days. But I do plan to give us a few week break over the holidays. Just because that's also a break for our staff and time for them to get caught up and things like that. So I want to be cognizant of that as well.
Madam Chair, my face was just because we have so much that's coming in front of the board right now that these Friday sessions are going to be marathons from here on out. And so people are going to need downtime afterwards to get fed also after these meetings. So I would prefer not Friday afternoons, please. Thank
All
you.
right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I will get those meetings up within the next few days. But in the meantime, I think would be helpful over the next few weeks, or the next week, is if those kind of working groups could start to get together and have some conversations with the appropriate city departments. So if, we're working on the constituent service piece, that group probably needs to reach out to the NIS system, CSB, and start to coordinate some meetings there. We'll get all of the documents over to the ordinances committee that has all the ordinances that we've pulled thus far.
Madam Chair,
yes,
I know you used to being a teacher.
yes,
but you don't need to tell us. We got you. Don't worry about it. We got you. Okay.
good.
We got
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate it. So if there's no other discussion for today, then I think we are good to go. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You want to,
Okay. There's a motion made by the alderman from the 18th, I believe seconded by the alderman from the 23rd, that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. See you next week.